आज हमारे इस वीडियो का टॉपिक है द एड्रेनोकॉर्टिकोट्रॉफिक हार्मोन। लेकिन एड्रेनोकॉर्टिकोट्रॉफिक हार्मोन को पढ़ने से पहले लेट्स रिवाइज कि हमने पिछले 7-8 लेक्चर्स में एड्रेनोकॉर्टिकोट्रॉफिक हार्मोन के बारे में कहीं कुछ सुना तो नहीं है। Haven't I told you many things about adrenocorticotropic hormone which will make our lecture very useful and very easy to understand today? I told you so many things about the adrenocorticotropic hormone which you must remember. The first thing is the name of the adrenocorticotropic hormone. The name indicates the adrenocorticotropic hormone. It says many things about this hormone. That is the adrenocorticotropic hormone. So the name indicates so many things about the hormone. Adreno, that means its target gland is the adrenal gland. Cortico, its target is the cortex of the adrenal gland. Trophic, it is a trophic hormone. And hormone, it's a hormone. So, adrenocorticotropic hormone, it is that hormone which is released by the anterior part of pituitary and it goes to the adrenal cortex, right? It goes to the adrenal gland where it goes to the cells of the adrenal cortex. And it is a trophic hormone. Why it is a trophic hormone? Because it is secreted by one endocrine gland, that is the pituitary gland, and its primary target is a second endocrine gland, that is the adrenal gland or adrenal cortex. Overall, this hormone, it is, I will show it here. This is the anterior part of pituitary. So it releases this hormone and it goes to the adrenal gland. Let's assume that this is the adrenal gland. And it goes to the cortex of adrenal gland. Adrenal gland, it has two main parts. One is the outer part and second is the inner part. The outer part is known as the cortex and the inner part is known as the medulla. So the outer part of the adrenal gland is known as adrenal cortex and the inner part is known as the adrenal medulla. Right? So this hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, it goes to the adrenal gland and it goes to the adrenal cortex. This adrenal cortex, it has 3 important layers. From outside to inside, I will name these layers. We will discuss these layers in detail in the lecture on adrenal gland later on. First, I will give you a brief idea about these 3 layers. The outermost layer is the zona glomerulosa. The middle layer is zona fasciculata, and the innermost layer of cortex is zona reticularis. So you will remember here that the prime target of adrenocorticotropic hormone is the adrenal gland and the cortex of the adrenal gland, and mainly it affects the zona fasciculata. So its prime target is zona fasciculata and it also has some influence on zona glomerulosa and zona fasciculata. And if I give an order to these, so it mostly influences the zona fasciculata cells of adrenal cortex and then also the zona reticularis, and least affects the zona glomerulosa. Right? So this is all about the introduction about the adrenocorticotropic hormone, which is sometimes also known as the corticotrophin or adrenocorticotropic hormone, right? So adrenocorticotropic hormone or corticotropin is secreted by the anterior pituitary gland and it goes to the adrenal gland and it goes to the adrenal cortex and especially it goes to the zona fasciculata cells of adrenal cortex. I hope talk about the chemistry of this hormone. This hormone, I have already told you somewhere that this hormone, it's a polypeptide hormone. It is a polypeptide. What does that mean? It's a polypeptide hormone. It has many amino acids. It has around 39 amino acids. So this hormone, the adrenocorticotropic hormone or the corticotropin, it's a polypeptide having 39 amino acids. And I will tell you a very interesting point about this hormone, that the first 13 amino acids of ACTH, they resemble the alpha MSH, the melanocyte stimulating hormone. The alpha MSH, it's produced in a number of animals, and the first 13 amino acids of this long chain of amino acids in ACTH, that's the polypeptide of 39 amino acids, the first 13 amino acids from the end terminal of this polypeptide, they resemble in structure to alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone. And that's why this adrenocorticotrophic hormone, it has an effect on the melanocytes of the human body. You must be knowing about the Addison's disease, which we will deal later on in the adrenal gland. There is a syndrome or disease which is known as the Addison's disease or Addison syndrome. In this disease, Addison's disease, what happens? There are high levels of ACTH. There are high levels of adrenocorticotrophic hormone, and when there are high levels of adrenocorticotrophic hormones, it has been seen that there is some darkening or tanning of the skin. The skin becomes dark. Why? Because adrenocorticotrophic hormone, the 13 amino acids of adrenocorticotrophic hormones, the first chain, it resembles the MSH structurally. So ACTH also has some MSH-like effects, like the darkening of the skin. Okay? I hope you understood it well that the ACTH, it is a polypeptide hormone. Then we will go with the regulation of ACTH. I have already told you that the hypothalamus, it produces a hormone which is known as ACTH releasing hormone, or which is known as corticotropin releasing hormone. This hormone is released on the median eminence and it goes into the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. You can see the previous lectures, you must watch the previous lectures. So it goes into the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system, and then these hormones, they go into the anterior part of pituitary gland. So this is the anterior pituitary, and here they stimulate the cells, the anterior pituitary cell, the basophils, which are known as the corticotropes. And those corticotropes, they release the corticotropin, which is also known as ACTH. And this ACTH, it goes to the adrenal gland. It goes to the adrenal gland, and in the adrenal gland, this hormone causes the release of the adrenal hormones, especially the 3 categories of hormones. But here it usually causes the release of the hormone known as glucocorticoids. It causes the release of glucocorticoids from adrenal gland, like one is cortisol. So the ACTH regulation takes place, first it takes place through the release of corticotropin releasing hormone. This corticotropin releasing hormone is released by the hypothalamus. It goes into the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. It reaches the anterior part of pituitary. It goes to the chromophilic cells, the basophilic cells, the important basophilic cells like the corticotropic cells or corticotropes. These corticotropes, they release the hormone which is known as corticotropin or ACTH. This ACTH goes to the adrenal gland, it goes to the adrenal cortex, and in the adrenal cortex it goes to the zona fasciculata, where it causes the release of glucocorticoids like cortisol. So this is the first regulation of the corticotropin or adrenocorticotrophic hormone. It is regulated by the hypothalamic hormone which is known as ACTH, RH or CRH. Adrenocorticotrophic hormone releasing hormone or corticotropin releasing hormone. There is a second mechanism of regulation of this hormone of anterior pituitary, that is corticotropin. That regulation is through the cortisol or glucocorticoids. These hormones, they have a negative feedback. So when the levels of glucocorticoids are high, they go to the hypothalamus and they cause the decreased levels of ACTH, RH, and this indirectly causes the decrease in the levels of ACTH or corticotropin, which is the negative feedback. It has also been seen that these hormones, cortisol, etc., they directly go to the anterior part of pituitary. They go to the anterior part of pituitary and they inhibit the transcription of the precursor molecules which form ACTH. You have to remember it. I told you that the first regulation is through ACTH, RH, and the second regulation is through glucocorticoids. The glucocorticoids, they decrease the release of ACTH from anterior pituitary by having a negative feedback. You already know the negative feedback. I already told you in TSH hormone as well. But there is another mechanism via the glucocorticoids. They go to the cells of anterior pituitary and they prevent the transcription of the proteins which are the precursors of ACTH. Right? So they directly influence the transcription of the various proteins that form the ACTH. So this ACTH doesn't form when the levels of glucocorticoids are very high. So this is also known as the slow loop feedback. This mechanism where the corticosteroids, they influence the transcription of proteins in the anterior pituitary, transcription of DNA into the proteins which are the precursors of ACTH. This mechanism is known as the slow loop feedback, right? Because it takes a lot of time. Because the negative feedback, it takes only a few minutes, but this mechanism, it takes minutes, it takes days, it takes hours. So this is all about the regulation of the ACTH, adrenocorticotrophic hormone, by the corticotropin releasing hormone and by the glucocorticoids from adrenal cortex. Right? So adrenocorticotrophic hormones is the anterior lobe of pituitary. Where in the anterior lobe of pituitary, this hormone is formed in the chromophylls. I have already told you about the chromophylls. Where in the chromophylls, it is formed in the basophils. I have already told you about the basophils. Why in the basophils? It is formed in the cells known as corticotropes. So, adrenocorticotrophic hormone or corticotropin is secreted by the corticotropes, which are the basophilic cells, which are the chromophilic cells in the anterior lobe of pituitary. So, this is all about the source of these hormones. The important topic about this ACTH is the synthesis of this hormone. Synthesis. So how is ACTH synthesized? This is very important. You must remember that ACTH is actually synthesized from a precursor molecule which is known as pre-pro-opio-melanocortin. Pro-opio-melanocortin, right? So it is somehow related to cortin means corticosteroids or adrenal cortex. Melano means melanin. Opio means opiates, right? So this is a molecule which is known as pro-opio-melanocortin, which is written as POMC. So this hormone, it is a long polypeptide and it undergoes many changes during the translation. During that phase, it undergoes some deletion of some portion of this molecule. तो एक साइड चेन निकल जाती है, एक पॉलीपेप्टाइड चेन निकल जाती है, एक सेगमेंट निकल जाता है, and it leads to the formation of another molecule which is known as pro-opio-melanocortin. So this pro-opio-melanocortin forms the pro-opio-melanocortin, and it is around, I think, 241 amino acid molecule polypeptide, and this pro-opio-melanocortin, it forms a number of molecules. It forms a number of molecules. For example, it forms corticotropin. So it is a precursor of corticotropin or ACTH. You must remember. So the precursor molecule for the corticotropin or ACTH is the pro-opio-melanocortin, and the precursor of this POMC is the pre-OMC. Right? In addition to corticotropin, it also forms a number of molecules. This long polypeptide chain, it breaks down and it forms a number of peptides and peptide fragments, for example corticotropin. It also forms another molecule which is known as CLIP, corticotropin-like intermediate peptide, CLIP. We said it's CLIP, corticotropin-like intermediate peptide. So it also breaks and it forms the melanocortin, which is known, melanocortin alpha, which is known as alpha MSH. Right? It has some role because pro-opiomelanocortin is the precursor molecule of corticotropins as well as MSH. Since humans don't have a well-developed intermediate lobe, so some of the MSH is formed along with the ACTH in the anterior lobe, right? And these molecules, they have some effect on the skin pigmentation. It also forms the melanocortin gamma, which is known as gamma MSH. It also forms a little quantity of beta MSH. You will remember. It also forms the lipotropins. Lipotropin beta, lipotropin gamma. It also forms some molecules which are known as enkephalins and some endorphins. We will not go into the detail of these molecules, but I wanted to tell only one thing, that the molecule that is the corticotropin or ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, it is produced from a precursor molecule which is known as pro-opiomelanocortin, and this pro-opiomelanocortin also forms a number of other molecules. That's why the anterior lobe of pituitary having the corticotropins, their secretions have many other effects in addition to the corticotropin effects, like it has a melanin formation effect in the skin, etc. Right? So lipotropins, beta and gamma lipotropins, and the enkephalins and endorphins, and melanocortins alpha and gamma, they are, which are MSH hormones, they are also produced from POMC, pro-opiomelanocortin. So it was all about the synthesis of the adrenocorticotropic hormone. So now the adrenocorticotropic hormone, it is synthesized within the corticotropic cells of anterior pituitary, and these cells will release this corticotropin wire into the blood, and it will go to its targets. So in the blood, the T-half of this hormone is only 10 minutes, you will remember. The T-half, the half-life of adrenocorticotropic hormone in the blood is only 10 minutes, and this hormone, it will go to its target. What is its target? The target of this hormone is adrenal gland, and more specifically the target is the adrenal cortex, right? Of this hormone, because I already told you in previous lectures that ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, is the polypeptide. Since the peptide hormones, they have the cell membrane receptor, so this molecule also has a cell membrane receptor. So this molecule, it goes to the adrenal cortex, and in the adrenal cortex, the adrenal cortical cells, they have the surface receptors for this hormone, that is ACTH. So the ACTH has cell surface receptors, and the type of receptors is the, I have already told you in the previous lectures, the cell surface molecule for ACTH is the G protein coupled receptor. I have already told you in the previous classes about the G protein coupled receptors. So these are the types of receptors which we also call as 7 transmembrane receptors, right? So the receptor for ACTH is present in the adrenal cortex, adrenal cortex cells, and it is a surface receptor and is known as the G protein coupled receptor. So it is all about the receptor of this hormone. And how does this act? So this receptor, the hormone receptor complex, it then activates the enzyme, you must be knowing, adenylyl cyclase, and it leads to the formation of second messenger. So this hormone, it acts through a second messenger. I have already told you in the classification of hormones, this ACTH, it acts through a second messenger, and the second messenger in this case is the cyclic AMP, right? So this hormone, it binds to the cell surface receptor, which is the G protein coupled receptor, and this receptor, it helps in a cascade of reaction through a second messenger. The second messenger here is cyclic adenosine monophosphate, which is generated through the activity of adenylyl cyclase. So it's all about the receptor of this hormone and the mechanism of action of adrenocorticotropic hormone. Now we will go for the functions of this hormone. Functions. This hormone has, the primary function of this hormone is the maintenance of the structural integrity of the adrenal cortex, you must remember. So the prime function of this hormone is, it has two important functions. The first function is the maintenance of the structural integrity and vascularization of the adrenal cortex, especially the zona fasciculata, and also the zona reticularis. So the prime function of adrenal cortex is the maintenance of the structural integrity and the vascularization of adrenal gland. Where in the adrenal gland? Adrenal cortex. And which zone? Especially the zona fasciculata and zona reticularis as well. I will tell you something here, that the three zones of adrenal gland, that is the zona, the outer zone is zona glomerulosa, the middle is zona fasciculata, and the inner is zona reticularis. This zona glomerulosa, it produces various hormones which are in general known as mineralocorticoids. For example, aldosterone, it is an example of mineralocorticoids. So this ACTH, it doesn't do much about the release of mineralocorticoids. The zona fasciculata, it produces the glucocorticoids, for example, cortisol. So the prime focus of this adrenocorticotrophic hormone is the zona fasciculata and the secretion of glucocorticoids, especially cortisol. And this zona reticularis, it produces the sex corticoids, for example, androgens. We will not deal with those at the present moment. Here we have the focus. Our focus is zona fasciculata. So the first function of the adrenocorticotrophic hormone is the structural integrity, maintenance of the adrenal cortex, especially the zona fasciculata, which release the glucocorticoids. Now, the second function of this adrenocorticotrophic hormone, very important function, is the production, the synthesis and release of these glucocorticoids. Adrenocorticotrophic hormone, it helps in the synthesis and secretion of the hormones of adrenal cortex. And which hormones? It helps in the synthesis and secretion of adrenal cortex hormones from the zona fasciculata, especially. What are the hormones of zona fasciculata? They are the glucocorticoids. For example, cortisol. So how does it do this? How does this adrenocorticotrophic hormone cause the synthesis and secretion of glucocorticoids? There are two mechanisms. You must remember here, there are two mechanisms for the synthesis of glucocorticoids. Number one mechanism is the rapid mechanism, and number two is the slow mechanism. Right? In the rapid mechanism, it's a short-term mechanism, short-term action. What happens? The adrenocorticotrophic hormone, it increases the bioavailability. It increases the bioavailability of cholesterol in the cells of adrenal cortex. I have already told you in the classification of hormones that the cholesterol, it is the precursor molecule of all steroid hormones. So this cholesterol, its bioavailability is increased in the cortical cells by the adrenocorticotrophic hormone. When its bioavailability is increased in the adrenal cortex cells, so it will ultimately form more hormones of adrenal cortex. And the second thing is that the adrenocorticotrophic hormone, it increases or it enhances the transport or delivery of cholesterol into the mitochondria. Right? When the cholesterol is taken into the mitochondria, what happens? This cholesterol is converted in another molecule which is known as it is pronounced as prenanolone, and the spell is pregnanolone. So this prenanolone molecule, it is formed from cholesterol, and this step, it is catalyzed by an enzyme which is known as P450SCC. I'll tell you. So this hormone, the adrenocorticotrophic hormone, it first increases the bioavailability of cholesterol. It increases the bioavailability of cholesterol in the cortical cells of adrenal cortex. So these are the cells of zona fasciculata of adrenal cortex, right? So in these cells, the cholesterol bioavailability is increased. The cholesterol molecules are increased. Then the cholesterol molecules, they are taken into the mitochondria. Why? Because in the mitochondria there is an enzyme which is known as P450SCC. P450 is its name, and SCC means side chain cleavage. So the side chain of the cholesterol, this is the cholesterol molecule, its side chain is cleaved by this enzyme which is known as P450SCC, and it converts the cholesterol in another molecule. Say this is the cholesterol and its side chain is cleaved, and the rest molecule is known as prenanolone. Right? It is known as prenanolone, and it is the first molecule that is formed in the steroidogenesis of the steroid hormone. So this is the first step in the steroidogenesis process. That means the formation of the steroid hormones. So because the adrenocortical hormones are steroid hormones, cholesterol conversion into prenanolone is very essential, and this is mediated by the adrenocorticotrophic hormone, which helps in its conversion by delivering the cholesterol into the mitochondria cells. And here the cholesterol is converted into the prenanolone, and this prenanolone, it leads to the formation of the adrenal cortex hormone, which are known as corticoids, especially the glucocorticoids, and finally they are released from the cells to outside. So this is the rapid or short-term mechanism, and there is second mechanism which is the slow mechanism or long-term mechanisms. What happens? The adrenocorticotrophic hormone, it goes into the cells of the adrenal cortex, and it enhances the transcription, it enhances the formation of this enzyme. So it directly helps in the transcription of proteins like P450SCC, it's an enzyme, and other enzymes which are important for the conversion of cholesterol into prenanolone and the formation of proteins. So that is the slow mechanism or long-term mechanism. So that is the influence of this hormone directly on the genes, why it leads to the transcription and formation of these adrenal cortex molecule. I hope आपको ये समझ आया होगा. So I told you that functions of the adrenocorticotrophic hormone. The first function is it helps in the structural integrity and the vascularity of the adrenal cortex, and the second function is the formation, synthesis and release of the hormones of adrenal cortex through a short-term mechanism and through a long-term mechanism. The rapid mechanism involves the movement of cholesterol into the cells, increasing the bioavailability of cholesterol and the conversion of cholesterol into prenanolone through the activity of P450SCC enzyme. And the long-term effect means ACTH directly influences the genes of these cells and helps in the transcription into these enzymes which help in the steroidogenesis. And there is one more function of this adrenocorticotrophic hormone, that the adrenocorticotrophic hormones, as I already told you, it resembles the alpha-MSH melanocyte stimulating hormone. That's why the adrenocorticotrophic levels, when they are high, they also help in the darkening of the skin, even in the human beings. You know that in human beings the intermediate lobe of pituitary is not well developed, so the function is overtaken by the ACTH, which helps in the darkening of the skin because it has the alpha-MSH functions, and it goes to the cells which are known as melanocytes, and it causes the synthesis of melanin. So this is all about the function of adrenal corticotrophic hormone, and even it has some lipotrophic effect as well. So if you have any query, kindly mail me on my mail ID sajadwani657, and please guys, please subscribe to my channel Genesis Academy by Dr. Sajadwani, and I have a Facebook page with the name Genesis Academy. You can follow me there as well. Thank you so much for watching this video lecture. There are more video lectures coming, and you should follow these lectures from lecture 1, तभी आपको समझ आएगा, ऐसे आपको समझ नहीं आएगा. To make the lectures more interesting, you should go from lecture 1 of endocrinology, and that will help you to come up to the speed.